Water Island is a really polarizing island to talk about. Opinions on this island are all over the place, and our group was no exception. You either love it or hate it. And then there's me, who's pretty indifferent about it, though I say we've made a pretty good list of goods and bads. Well, this one's gonna be pretty interesting to talk about, and there's a lot of ground to cover, so let's waste no more time and get to it. Per the usual, let's start with the not so good. Tweedle has a really good melody on this island, but like Air, it just doesn't have the best singing voice on this island, and the multiple voices don't sound all that good together. It only plays once though, so it's not damaging to the song. Blabbit is a pretty weak seasonal track, unfortunately. I really like this monster, but it just doesn't do a good job pairing with Octopus, and tends to steal attention away from it rather than expand on the track. It comes back later in the song and just adds to the chaos when it does. Dipsters are dipsters, and per the usual, their voice is very annoying and distracting and don't fit in the song at all. Shrub is totally wasted on this island. Its impact is non-existent, its track is generic and boring, and like Gold just gets overshadowed by every other percussionist under the sun. Quibble and Anglo aren't necessarily bad per se, since they are instrumental air fillers, they're a necessity for the song's tone and atmosphere. Unfortunately though, they are the absolute bare minimum, and are extremely disappointing since there's so much more they could have done with the synth and piano, while still filling in for the chords of the song. What works is awful as always. Like usual, it doesn't fit in with the context of the song, doesn't pair well with any monster, and is the biggest offender of bloating the song when it plays. It's not my least favorite Wobox track, but I'll never be in the mood to listen to this awful noise. So one major argument point on this island that always has a lot of conflicting views are the weirdos. Our group was no exception, as we had arguments for both good and bad, though unfortunately the bad outweighs the good this time around. Starting with Magpie, her biggest weakness is the audio quality. The mic peaks and the voice is really muffled for some reason. I will however give credit to the performance and how much effort was put into it though. Persona however is the more offensive of the two. The performance is stale, tired, and unenthusiastic, which clashes hard against the island's tone. It also has the disservice of playing sour notes and not meshing with Magpie all that well. Together in the song, these two just add to the chaos of sounds going on, don't really pair well with the other monsters, and aren't interesting enough to take the lead. Overall, these worlds missed big time and are a net negative for the song. Okay, so the ugly for this island is a very complex subject with a lot of parts, so just bear with me out on this one. It's all going to boil down to the length of the song. It's just way too short. Capping out at a max of 80 seconds, it's tagged with Earth as the shortest song in the game. When Water first came out, it wasn't that big of an issue, however, when they tried to add to the song, that's when things started going south quickly. Because the song never got extended, it meant the song had to accommodate for all these new monsters into already established verses. Now, this isn't a bad thing as long as they make it work with what was already there. The problem is that they don't work with what was already there. Most of these sounds don't mesh well with the original naturals. They just try and take spotlight whenever they come in, so the song just becomes a game of tug-of-war with all these sounds fighting for attention instead of working together as a combined unit. This leads to one thing: clutter. This also has devastating consequences for Water. See, Water has a very unique tone compared to the other islands. Water does something really weird, and that is it takes two completely different tones and blends them in together. Water chooses to focus in on being an upbeat and uplifting song, but blends in elements of a more serene and ambient song into it, rather than full on going upbeat and ambient at the same time, which we've seen with both Sanctum and Psychic never ends well. In its original incarnation, this blend worked really well and gave Water a unique identity among the other islands. However, here's where the clutter comes in. Ambient pieces really don't work well with clutter at all. The whole point of being serene is that everything needs to be clear and flowing, and Water Island is very cluttered nowadays. So this means that the song ended up losing its serene qualities, which in turn completely destroyed a very important part of Water's unique tone and identity. This is the exact same trap that Gold Island fell into, and just like Gold, Water suffers a lot from this issue. The worst part is that all the song needed was an extension to spread out the parts, but they chose not to, and it's one of the biggest missed opportunities in the entire game because of that. So what about the good monsters? Well, let's start with Octopus. This is a really good intro monster and sets up Water Island really well. It has a good vocal performance and a catchy melody to boot. As time went on though, it got overshadowed by the other monsters that were added to that verse, which is rather frustrating. Denidu is a nice accompanying monster that pairs well with most of the other monsters, has a solid vocal performance and does a good job in filling in space, but like Octopus, it gets major overshadowed. Scups is a really good complement monster and does a fantastic job capping off the song with Shelby at the end. But as time went on, Scups got major overshadowed, making the only place where it really stands out being the very end. The quartet of Cybot, Potbelly, Sponge, and Reetling is really solid, and brings a lot of flavor and energy to the table. All four of them add a lot to the quartet and do a good job sounding upbeat and lively. However, as time went on, they get completely taken over by the likes of the Wordos and Wobox. Geode is one of the monsters on this island that chooses to focus on the more serene aspect of the song alongside Xanadu. It does a really good job at it too. Its melody has an interesting rhythm and its sound flight is perfect for the song. Unfortunately though, as time went on, Geode's soothing melody got overshadowed by the many other melodies playing on top of it. Epic Wobox is actually a pretty mixed addition. Its first track borders on too much and distracts from the more interesting things to focus on, but it's saved by the last two, which pair really well with the quartet and help out Shelby and Scups at finishing out the song. So the best monster on the island is gonna go to Shellbeat. It pretty much makes the upbeat feel of the song, it's 95% of the rhythmic interest and adds a lot of flair and spice to the song. Fills in the air and pairs really well with the other monsters of the song. Without Shellbeat, Water Island is really boring, since the rest of the percussion don't do justice to the more uplifting melodies in the song. It also does a really good job at capping off the song at the end, taking a step back from the more energetic verse before to mellow it out, which is just perfect for the end. Overall, it carries and is one of the better drum kit tracks in the game. Well, that's Water Island, a very weird island in the game, but how does it stack up? Well, more so tumbles over. Water is really frustrating as it had a lot going for it and could have been so much more. In fact, we've seen what this island could be at its best before in the past. In my opinion, the best version of Water Island is the Water Island Spotify remix that was made way back when. Go check it out and see for yourself, I promise it's really good. The in-game version of the song, however, while it's not the worst song we've covered so far, it's still pretty disappointing. Well, that's that. Do you agree or disagree? Do we make a splash or get lost in the depths? Let me know in the comments below. Well, that's it from me and I'll see you in the next one.